No, he wanted to quit.
It's almost like he's trying to nut it. And that'll do it.
We won. We won.
20,000, bitch. No, it's 200,000, bitch. 200,000.
200,000 apiece, bitch.
200,000, bitch.
200,000 apiece.
200,000 a pop, bitch.
200,000 a pop, bitch.
Oh my God, you quit like a little. My face was worse than yours. You little. Get that Twitter up now, lad. I'm quote tweeting that tweet he sent to me. Justin Gaethje. Well in, lad. Undisputed champion. You deserve it after your career. But now I want that rematch. I am going to finish BSD and I want that rematch with Justin Gaethje for the undisputed title. I told you, didn't I? It was fate. Justin Gaethje, man, that's off to you. You deserve it for the fucking heavy career you've had. You absolutely deserve it, lad. Everyone give me shit for getting beat by him. What now? What now, lad? Thought he was finished. Thought he was 38. Thought he was over the hill. And then he just beat you. Greatest fighter of all time, Ilia Topuria. You fucking gang of gobshite. I went 5 with him. I took every fucking shot that he threw at me and kept walking forward. This little bitch has just quit.
Justin Gaethje just defeated Ilia Topuria by round 4 TKO to corner stoppage at UFC Freedom 250 on the White House lawn and is now the undisputed lightweight world champion at 37 years old. I can't believe I'm saying these things. I thought Strickland's upset against Chimaev was going to be enough this year for the MMA gods to start making logic true once again in this sport, but no. Justin Gaethje puts a whooping on Ilia Topuria. Fair enough, survives a nightmarish round 2. But I had Justin Gaethje winning this fight 3 rounds to 1. It wasn't even like Ilia Topuria was clearly ahead the whole fight and Justin Gaethje just broke him in round 4 and then Ilia Topuria quits on the stall. I had Gaethje up 3 rounds to 1. I thought he won.
Things went down this evening at the White House, and then Monday, in just a few hours time, we'll do the regular show and give you the regular breakdown. Justin Gaethje is the undisputed champion of the UFC. This is a shocking result, and I have to apologize because I don't usually make picks, and I was quite confident in my pick. I thought Ilia Topuria was going to win. Justin Gaethje won that fight fair and square. It appears as though Ilia's corner called off the fight going into the 5th round, and it looked like going into the 4th round the doctor was going to call it off. In fact, it seems as though he did actually call it off at one point. He shook his head. He said Ilia couldn't see, and then Mark Goddard almost like convinced him to keep it going. It was a weird thing. They gave him more time. Seemed a little bit odd, but in the end the right man won. Justin Gaethje looked a lot bigger at 155 than Ilia. Justin Gaethje could take a punch in the first round when Ilia was hitting him like a Mack truck. Gaethje was taking the shots. No one takes those shots from Ilia, and Ilia was wearing some damage, and all of a sudden, you know, he's bleeding, and all of a sudden he's getting rocked, and all of a sudden he's cut, and all of a sudden he's, you know, swelling, and all of a sudden he can't see, and we've never seen him compromise like that before. We've never seen him in.
Dan, I just want to get your thoughts.
It's one of the greatest fights you'll ever see. It was incredible, and especially when you got a guy 8-1 underdog and then comes in and does what he did tonight. The body shots that Ilia hit Gaethje with in that round, and then Gaethje gets through it. Ilia's in the hospital. He's busted up. I'm not a doctor, but his eye looked like he probably has a broken orbital. And my plans for him are to go home and rest.
Justin Gaethje didn't simply defeat Ilia Topuria at UFC White House. He completely outclassed him. That distinction is important because there's a huge difference between dropping a fight in mixed martial arts and getting dismantled so thoroughly that the image everyone created around you begins to fall apart. Topuria entered the arena as the fighter many believed would become the sport's next generational superstar. He left after facing a question that few people were willing to say out loud. What takes place when a flawless storyline runs into an opponent who refuses to play the expected role? The result was obvious. It ended with Gaethje standing above him, while the lightweight division suddenly looked completely different than it had the day before. To truly understand why this defeat carried so much weight, you first have to recognize what Ilia Topuria symbolized before UFC White House. This wasn't viewed as just another championship matchup. It was expected to be his crowning moment. Topuria had already achieved something only a handful of fighters throughout MMA history had accomplished. He moved into a heavier division and stopped the reigning champion on his very first try. His victory over Alexander Volkanovski wasn't a narrow decision, a performance built on surviving, or a fortunate punch late in the 5th round. He finished one of the most technically polished athletes the UFC had ever seen, and he did it with authority. That showing alone forced the MMA community to pay attention in a way it almost never does anymore. Once Topuria turned his focus toward the lightweight division, the discussion changed almost overnight. Fans were no longer wondering if he could succeed at lightweight. Instead, they were asking how soon the entire division would belong to him. Gaethje was presented as the last obstacle, not because people questioned his durability or everything he had already accomplished. Justin Gaethje has built his entire career by showing he belongs among the very best in the sport. The belief behind all of it, however, was that Topuria possessed a skill set on another level. His knockout power, his precision, and the way he can end a fight without throwing endless combinations made many expect the same outcome. The assumption was that Gaethje's aggressive style, constantly moving forward, taking damage, and fighting in close range, would play directly into the hands of a finisher like Ilia. Looking at it beforehand, that opinion made perfect sense. It simply proved to be incorrect in one very clear and revealing way. What Gaethje delivered inside the cage was completely different from what most people predicted. He didn't beat Topuria by getting into a wild brawl. He didn't stand in exchange until fortune went his way. He dictated the fight. By relying on his wrestling, he took away the distance Topuria depends on to create his power. He pinned him along the fence, broke up his rhythm, and forced him into situations where Ilia had never looked this uncomfortable against elite competition. Then, whenever the action returned to striking, Gaethje handled that battle as well. His relentless pressure, powerful grappling, and the constant danger he posed whether standing or clinching gave Topuria no consistent solution throughout the contest. That wasn't a matter of luck. It revealed a stylistic weakness, and those kinds of issues don't disappear after one more training camp. The reason this result stunned so many people is because it uncovered a flaw in how the MMA community had been viewing Topuria. Many had already begun treating his potential as if it were his current reality. They looked at his incredible performance against Volkanovski, which truly was exceptional, and skipped several important steps when judging where he actually stood. Topuria had competed only once at lightweight. Yet after that single performance, a huge part of the fan base and much of the MMA discussion had already crowned him as the division's future champion. Gaethje shattered that belief far more decisively than almost anyone expected. What followed after the fight has created its own narrative. Since the loss, Topuria has remained unusually quiet. There has been no instant emotional reaction, no challenge directed at anyone, and no wave of activity across social media. For a fighter known for carrying himself with complete confidence, someone who has never hesitated to speak openly or back himself before any crowd, that silence feels different. It doesn't come across as someone who doesn't care. It feels more like the silence of someone experiencing something entirely new. Suffering the first defeat of a professional career is a unique moment, and every fighter responds to it in their own way. Topuria is clearly choosing to take his time before saying anything publicly. Whether that reflects maturity or simply shows that the emotions are still too fresh is something only the people inside his camp truly know. Even so, that silence has become part of the conversation because the MMA world is waiting just as eagerly to hear what he says next as they are to see what he does next. The reaction from fans has been divided in a way that perfectly reflects how controversial this outcome has become. A significant section of the fan base is genuinely disappointed by the result. Many of those fans had completely bought into the Topuria story. They had replayed the Volkanovski fight countless times and were already imagining what a Topuria versus Islam Makhachev matchup at lightweight would look like. For those supporters, this defeat does more than hurt. It completely shakes the expectations they had built. On the other side is a group that feels their concerns have been proven right, not because they were against Topuria, but because they had been warning about the limited sample size, the conclusions being reached too quickly, and the reality that the lightweight division is the toughest and deepest weight class in the sport, where one dominant victory is not enough to make you the king. Then there is a third group, likely the biggest of them all, who are still trying to process what they witnessed before deciding how they truly feel about it. That may be the most reasonable reaction anyone can have right now. The effect this fight has had on the lightweight division is almost impossible to overstate. Topuria was widely viewed as the inevitable contender to challenge Islam Makhachev's reign, or the fighter expected to dominate the lightweight division for years to come. That discussion has not vanished, but it has become far more complicated. A defeat like this, not a razor-close decision or an off night that could be dismissed, but a decisive and convincing loss to a fighter many believed he was favored to beat, demands a complete reassessment. The division now feels more open than it has in a long time. Gaethje has placed himself back into the title conversation. Topuria must rebuild his position, and every contender beneath them is watching these developments with great interest. As for what lies ahead for Ilia Topuria, the road is still there, but it starts with being honest. The first step is exactly what seems to be taking place now: a period of reflection, studying the footage again, and identifying not only the tactical mistakes, but also whether there are technical or physical weaknesses that must be improved before competing at this level again. His grappling, in particular, is likely to require major attention. If Topuria cannot solve the challenge of an opponent capable of mixing dangerous takedowns with knockout power, he will continue facing that same problem against the division's elite. This is not an issue unique to him. Some of the greatest fighters in MMA have encountered difficult stylistic matchups that exposed flaws, made the necessary adjustments, and eventually returned as even stronger competitors. The real question is whether Topuria has the awareness, along with the right people around him, to honestly address those issues instead of returning with the same strategy and expecting a different result. What separates truly elite fighters is that their first professional loss often becomes just as defining as their greatest victories. That is the point where their true character is revealed. Some athletes suffer a defeat like this and never fully recover from it. The confidence that once made them so dangerous gives way to doubt, and they are never quite the same again. Others treat it as the lesson they needed to become more complete competitors. The history of MMA shows that the second path is absolutely possible for someone with Topuria's level of talent. He is still young, highly skilled, and has demonstrated enough real ability throughout his career that dismissing him because of one defeat would be just as much of an overreaction as declaring him champion before he had truly earned it. Even so, the journey back will demand far more than a straightforward comeback victory and an immediate request for a rematch. He will likely have to show, across several fights, that the weaknesses Gaethje exposed have genuinely been corrected. In the end, UFC White House delivered another reminder of what makes this sport unlike almost any other. The stories we create around fighters, the confidence we place in their future, and the way we often decide how everything will end before it actually does. The cage has a unique way of tearing those expectations apart with ruthless honesty. Topuria's journey is far from finished. In fact, its most compelling chapter may still be waiting to unfold. But the version of that journey where he reaches the top of the lightweight division without facing true adversity or being forced to answer difficult questions no longer exists. Whatever comes next now rests entirely in his hands. Share your thoughts in the comments. Where do you think Topuria goes from here? And what does he need to prove before you believe he belongs back at this level? Subscribe if you want to follow the next stage of his journey, because the chapter that comes next could be the most fascinating one yet.